Nil was a semi-unscrupulous tow truck driver who rarely missed an opportunity to make $1. On this night, Nil stood next to his late 80s pickup truck outside of a local bar in the small town of Greenfield, Kansas. He was waiting for drunk patrons to drive away from the bar so he could follow them and tow their vehicle when they were pulled over by the local police. It was a nice racket. Nil also had a propensity to misbehave with his female customers. Such a reputation preceded him. With this in mind, it was no surprise that Nil was intrigued by a pretty brunette wearing a tasteful blue dress, possibly on her way to enjoy some after-work libations. Nina parked her minivan at the Last Happen Tavern in hopes of ending her Tuesday feeling slightly less numb than how she started the day. This day was the day that Nina's divorce was finalized, and she was left with the short and fleeting thoughts about what her existence in that relationship really accomplished. What did she gain from it? Due to paperwork signed in Nina's misguided youth, her ex-husband received the house, the nice car, and control of the shared bank account. Nina received the minivan, a vehicle that once belonged to her late mother. Nina stepped out of the minivan and stretched her back. Due to her ex-husband being a very large man, the driver's seat was permanently stuck in a slightly reclined position, forcing the much shorter Nina to manually keep her posture in order to drive the vehicle. In fact, every instance of her having to drive the minivan provoked memories that added insult to injury. This minivan was once in great condition, but was run down by years of Nina's ex-husband using the van for his business road trips because he didn't want to put unnecessary miles on his $70,000 pickup truck. He wouldn't even take care of basic maintenance. He never changed the oil, never rotated the tires. Nina even doubted if he could use a tire iron. Nina's thoughts were interrupted when she noticed a man in the corner of the parking lot, just out of reach of the parking lot lights. He was standing next to an old pickup truck with a towing lift attached to the back. Nina couldn't see many details about the shrouded man, but she could tell that he was big, and he was looking right at her. Perhaps the most unsettling part about this stranger staring at her was the fact that his silhouette, paired with his pickup truck, reminded Nina of her barbarian ex-husband. The only difference was that while this stranger was extremely shrouded by shadows, Nina's ex-husband contained his shadows within. Emotionally shaken, Nina hurried into the bar before her emotions became too overwhelming. Upon reaching the bar, Nina ordered an old-fashioned because the drink's bittersweet nature matched her current situation. Nina aggressively sipped the cocktail, desperately trying to relax. For the first time in 6 years, she took off her wedding ring in a public space. Staring at it as it sat on top of the bar, she thought about the irony of being able to keep the symbol of her marriage as a concession of her divorce. Nina was snapped out of her trance by the bartender, who covered the ring with her hand and told Nina, "I don't think this is the place to advertise your valuables." Nina looked up at the bartender and then to the patrons around her, some of whom averted their gaze once being noticed. "Thank you," Nina whispered to the bartender after looking back at her. "I'm just having a long day." "Relationship issues?" the bartender inquired. "My divorce was finalized today," Nina replied. "Oh, are we celebrating or mourning?" the bartender asked, feeling slightly awkward. Nina thought for a moment and finally responded, "I'm not sure yet. I guess I'll feel less numb once I figure out where do I go from here." "Well, I hate to be cliche," the bartender said, leaning forward in an attempt to be comforting. "But like they say, when one door closes, another one opens." The comfort this brought Nina was immediately ruined by a very unsettling realization. In her hurry to get into the bar, Nina forgot to lock her car door. While this would not have been a worry for Nina just a few weeks prior, now it was different. After recent events, that minivan wasn't just the only thing she had in this world. It was her world. Her only anchor to reality as she started her life over. Without saying another word to the bartender, Nina rushed out of the bar and headed to the minivan. She was about 20 yards away from her vehicle when her panic-induced tunnel vision was broken by the same shadow-clad barbarian that she had noticed on her way into the bar. Only this time was different. He wasn't just staring. He was shouting, "Hey, lady!" in a tone that was equal parts frantic and intimidating. Even more terrifying, the barbarian started moving toward Nina. Without further thought, Nina reached her car and sat in the driver's seat. Without checking her rearview mirror to see if the barbarian was still moving toward her, she started the car and exited the parking lot. She resolved to the idea that she would rather sit in a lonely hotel room than deal with the anxiety inherent in a social setting. By the time the lights of the Last Tavern faded into the darkness of the country road, Nina felt like she could breathe a little, until she saw a pair of headlights behind her, gaining ground with every passing moment. Maybe it was the police. After all, she had just run out of the bar without paying for her drink. This thought was erased once Nina realized, to her horror, that the headlights were now right behind her, and they belonged to the pickup truck that was driven by the shadow-clad barbarian. Nina responded to this in the only way she could think of. She pressed down on the gas pedal in hopes of finding salvation. The instinct of flight prevailed, and the chase was on. Deputy Knox was listening to a true crime podcast in his cruiser while waiting for any unsuspecting motorist to pass his favorite speed zone trap just off a gloomy road lined with miscanthus fields. However, he himself was caught off guard by two vehicles careening down the road with enough speed to shake the deputy's cruiser. Thinking that this was another example of local teenagers racing, Deputy Knox hit his lights and engaged in a pursuit of the vehicles, foregoing a call for backup due to his misconception that this was a tractable offense that did not call for the attention of a sheriff who, due to regulation changes, was required to attend all calls for backup during the evening shift. While Deputy Knox used his performance-enhanced cruiser to pursue the slower vehicles, he started to notice a few things out of the ordinary and silently questioned the scene in front of him. Who would choose such vehicles to engage in a street race? Surely there were better vehicles for the task than a late 2000s model minivan and a heavily used 80s-style pickup truck that had clearly been lifted for works in the fields. Why were those racers swerving from side to side as if they were trying to gain or maintain strategic positioning on the other vehicle? Where were they coming from? Where was the finish line? Before Deputy Knox could ponder further, he caught up to the pair of vehicles and proceeded to execute a traffic stop as the pickup truck pulled over to the side of the road with its right side tires sunken into the retention ditch that separates the road and the fields. The minivan also came to a stop in the center of the two-lane road about 80 yards ahead of the deputy's position. Before Deputy Knox could ponder further, he had caught up to the pair of vehicles and proceeded to execute a traffic stop as the pickup truck pulled over to the side of the road with its right side tires sunken into the retention ditch that separates the road and the fields. The minivan also came to a stop in the center of the two-lane road, about 80 yards ahead of the deputy's position. Immediately, the deputy noticed the driver of the pickup truck exit his vehicle and start to run towards the minivan. "Stop where you are!" Deputy Knox ordered as he exited his own vehicle. "She's in danger!" Nil screamed back while continuing toward the minivan, seemingly provoking Nina to let out a worried scream. "Freeze!" Deputy Knox ordered while pulling his less-than-lethal weapon and approaching Nil. "She needs help!" Nil replied while stopping and raising his hands above his head. "What are you doing out here, Nil?" Deputy Knox frantically inquired as he realized who he was talking to. While being placed in the back of the deputy's cruiser, Nil replied, "Help her! A masked person is hiding in her back seat." "What?" Deputy Knox asked as his sinking realization brought a chill to the deepest point of his physical existence. Before Nil could repeat his desperate plea, Knox stumbled toward the minivan with his mind racing. The count of intrusive questions increased as the distance between Knox and the minivan decreased. 70 yards. Why would the minivan driver scream so intensely with the danger so far away and the police on the scene? 40 yards. Why didn't the driver get out of the car? 10 yards. Why was the passenger side sliding door open? 0 yards. Oh my God. An undetermined amount of time later, Other deputies from the police department show up at the scene after Knox failed to respond to his radio. Nill was found sleeping in the back of the police cruiser. Knox was found sitting next to the minivan in the fetal position, while staring into the lifeless eyes of Nina, the driver of the minivan. Nina was found lying on the steering wheel facing the driver's side window. Her previously unused tire iron had been driven through her neck, all the way to the 90-degree bend, with so much force that it would have shattered the driver's side window had it not been rolled down. Nina's killer was never found.